2023 is officially a wrap. And so every single year we do a year in review of our financials to show you exactly what our take home was, what we spent money on throughout the year, and gives us some insight on how we could approach our finances differently for the new year. So grab a drink, get comfy, and join us for this year in review. Hey guys, it's Justine, your host of the Debt Free Millennials channel. This is my husband, Kyle.
What's up?
And we're going to go over the year's budget.
We always get dressed up for this. We think it's really important that you take your finances as a family very seriously. And sometimes it's something to be celebrated. And when you celebrate something, sometimes you get dressed up.
Sometimes
you get fancy with it.
Sometimes you drink tequila.
Yeah.
What kind of tequila is this?
This is a tequila called El Tequileño. And I absolutely love it. It's a sipping tequila, so you don't need anything mixers. But of course, we do enjoy margarita, but this is quite nice and delicious.
If your idea of tequila is Jose Cuervo, let me just blow your mind. When you enter into the small niche market tequilas, or even the bigger brand names like Terramana or George Clooney's
Casamigos, all
of those things. It's so much fun to try because they're high quality tequilas that you can literally drink on ice, which is how I typically like to enjoy them. And you as well.
Yep.
Okay.
So tequila over, budget started.
All that said, this is not a tequila channel, although idea could be for somebody. We're going to go over our year, what that looked like.
Oh man, I'm nervous.
Take a look right there, partner.
Okay. So for each year, for each month, we brought in these are averages?
These are averages.
Okay, 13,700 and change. And for the year, we brought in $164,870.
It does not feel that way at all.
I think it's just the high cost of living. When I look at that number, I go, wow, that's like a tremendous amount of money. We must be driving Ferraris and living in the penthouse. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. I live in LA and it's super expensive here and childcare is super expensive. And man, that number just doesn't feel very big. It's shocking and it feels sad. And coming from the Midwest where stuff is a lot more affordable. And I'm sure that there's people who are in lower cost of living areas watching this going, these people are crazy. Yeah. They brought in this much money and they feel poor. Are you serious? And we don't feel poor.
I don't know.
But it feels like it should go further for some reason.
It definitely feels like averaging $13,000 over a month. It feels like it should go farther. Granted, a lot of our journey in our chapter of life right now is building up a really big down payment so that we can buy our own home. We know you've heard this 1,000 times if you've been following this channel for a really long time, and we will get there for sure. I feel like 2024 is going to be that year for us. But it's just insane. So I want to bring you down to the fixed expenses of our budget. So these are all of the things that we know are regular bills for us that typically don't change. I also include groceries, toiletries, alcohol budget in there because obviously we're spending money on food every single month. That will never change. And so that's why it goes under the fixed column. But the biggest expenses for us are rent and daycare. Rent actually was 31% of our annual budget and daycare was 15.23%. You're like, that's such a weird number. It's because our daycare expense changed mid-year. So Quinn moved up a grade level, if you will. And so it lowered the cost of tuition. But now in 2024, that cost of tuition has gone up again. So it's going to change.
31% of our actual take home going towards rent or a mortgage in a high cost of living area really isn't that bad of a number. I've seen some people pushing this number up to 60%. And it's like they have nothing left over for food and insurance and cell phone. And, that's 40%, I think, feel like is more of a closer number to average in high cost of living areas like LA, San Francisco, New York, those kinds of places.
Yeah. If you're spending 60% on rent or a mortgage, that's the true definition of being house poor. If you are spending more than 40%, that is house poor.
You should be perking up. Red flags should be kind of going, hey, 40% of a lot. We got to really make sure that we're either doing our budget correctly or see what we can adjust.
Yeah. So a really good percentage, and I've done a whole video on percentages of realistic budget. I will link to that up here in the cards if you want to check that out. 25 to 35% is the appropriate amount of your take-home budget to dedicate towards rent or a mortgage payment. So we truly were right in the middle for last year. Daycare is a tricky one to figure out what that percentage should be because it varies state by state. When you go to a state like Colorado or Nebraska or Kansas, states that we're pretty familiar with by now, the budget for daycare is a lot less than what it would be for California. So it really just depends. But you can see some of our other expenses, like our cell phone bill and our internet, didn't even register on our annual budget because they were such small amounts.
So this is a great way to break down or to investigate where can I get money back in your budget. A lot of people want to say, okay, let's lower our cell phone bill. But our cell phone bill in total was, less than 1% of our total income. So trying to lower our cell phone bill isn't going to get us that much back at the end of the day. Where our major areas that we could save money on are our rent, which I don't really feel like downsizing to an even smaller place, and then daycare costs. And those, I'm sure that's the same story for a lot of people. The one that's not on here that I'm sure a lot of people would see is a car expense or a monthly car payment. So we have car expense on here, but that's for maintenance, tags, insurance, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm curious, you talked about the percentages. Do you remember what the percentage is for a car that's recommended? I mean, ours is 0. Like,
for a car,
you can pay for it in cash if you can.
I don't remember I think gas and fuel was on there. I don't remember what car maintenance was, if even the Bureau of Labor and Statistics even had like a maintenance category. I'd have to look back at that.
I just watched the video the other day of this guy who was bringing in $3,000 or $3,500 a month. And he had a $1,200 a month car payment. 33%, a third, 30% of your income going to a car is not okay. So that could be another area to look at. And that's why we do this annual review to be like, oh, okay, if I had a cheaper car, of course you need reliability and safety. Those are always factors to consider in that stuff. It's not a black and white kind of a decision. And we get that.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised at groceries being as low as it was, because I felt like for a long time that grocery number was just going up and up and up and up every month.
It was.
That's because it was.
Yeah, $686 on average is what we spent on groceries, toiletries, alcohol. So accounting for 5% of our budget. I think this one was the BLS said that this was like between 7 and 10%. So I know we're on the low end on the groceries, which is really nice. Okay. The rest of these categories, I feel like good.
It's 1% or less. I'm not really too worried about it.
So let's go over to the fund. This is all of our discretionary spending. And so a lot of the categories that we have inside of our discretionary spending have sinking funds tied to them. So instead of counting what I actually set aside for the sinking fund, where, for example, we have an LA bucket list category where we put $300 set aside every single month, and then we can choose whether or not we want to spend it or roll over. I actually took what we actually spent from those different categories to show you exactly what that expense looked like. So for fund money, which is the LA bucket list, we spent $4,200 or 3% of our annual budget on exploring LA and doing fun stuff around here.
I'm okay with that.
$350 per month on average. Now, this also includes a couple of trips to Disneyland, Disney on Ice. We did some day trips to Malibu, Solvang. We did a lot of different cool things. Yeah, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. So when we leave LA, I hope wherever we end up has a lot of fun stuff to do in that new city as well. Restaurants, we were averaging $311 per month, which I was actually really excited about, because a lot of times when we're going out to eat, we do it for happy hours and we're not really doing a full sit down meal with drinks, a full entree, desserts, all that stuff. So we've really tried to be strategic about how much money we're spending on restaurants. Just the other day, we went out to sushi for lunch. We got a lunch combo meal, and then we got some sushi, and it was $60 for our lunch. Yeah. Which is insane. Yeah, and we just didn't add water, so it didn't include any kind of drink on top of that. Yeah, so really being careful and mindful. Am I spending on the things that I truly love? I truly love that Toro. That Toro was just like,
It was butter.
It was so good. Okay. Shopping, we averaged just under $300. Here's an interesting thing. The clothing budget. Check this out. Zoom in on this.
I don't believe that
Because
for a
Kyle
second.
spent more money on clothes than I did.
I don't believe that for a second.
And you want to know why? It's
'cause
because
of
of
the
this
suit
jacket, this fly jacket that he's wearing right now. Okay. This beauty was custom tailored to his body by the Nordstrom personnel and the Nordstrom tailor. So hats off to them. And this is a soft blazer.
Every time I get dressed up and my wife gets dressed up, the only thing I realize is how far I am outkicking my coverage on how good my wife looks. So that's all that this ever does.
So the blazer, and that was like $700 plus for that blazer.
Yeah. And I will have it for at least a decade. At least.
Okay. Haircuts, we spent about $400 on getting our haircut. It's kind of crazy.
I know. It makes me want to go back to just shaving my head.
Well, we'll get there.
Thanks. Love you too.
I do love you. Gifts, we spent close to $3,000 on gifts in the year.
Wow. That's a
lot.
That's a lot.
A bulk of
And
that.
we usually don't buy each other gifts.
A bulk of that is Christmas gifts for our families. We may need to rethink how much we're spending on Christmas gifts for, I don't know, $3,000. We're debt free. We can spend money the way that we want.
Yeah. We
Is
also,
spoiling the people that we love with really amazing gifts something we want to do?
so I know. We've also spent some bigger money on gifts. So instead of buying our families gifts, we want to buy them experiences that we can enjoy together. So like you went to the Shania Twain concert with your mom. I took my dad to a Kansas City Chiefs football game. Like those are bigger ticket items, but we don't get to see them as often because we are out of town or we are long distance families, whatever you want to call that. And so we don't get to see them on a weekly basis. So when we do get to see them, we want to make them very memorable times. And so we're willing to spend the extra money to have those events because I know I'm not going to forget it. I know you're not going to forget yours. So maybe that's why that number is.
Subscriptions, we spent just under $600 for subscriptions. I'm okay with that.
For what?
Oh my gosh.
Netflix,
Amazon Prime, credit cards, apps. I think that's it.
Jeez, seems like a lot. The fact that we're spending more money on subscriptions than we are on our kid. No? Okay. Yeah. All right. We got that in the right order. Never mind.
No, we're spending more money on our kid.
But not by much. Like,
okay.
Oof.
Let's go down to future. This is all of our savings and our outside investing after we bring home our paychecks. So let's talk about this because this is amazing. We averaged about $2,000 in savings towards our down payment, close to $24,000 saved in the year for this particular goal.
I'll take it. That's fantastic.
14%. So you can really tell this is something that we're really emphasizing. And then 2% was spent on the vacation fund or saved for the vacation fund. What kind of vacations did we take in 2023?
Oh, man. So I was actually waiting to ask you this question. We both raised our hands at exactly the same time. Anyways, what do you think you spent money on this year that was absolutely the best thing? And it's funny because you typed it in. For me, it was Las Vegas.
Las Vegas was great.
Our trip to Las Vegas was fantastic because it was just the wife and I. She was looking good. I was looking like this. So we had a great time, great dinners, pools, all the whole 9 yards. Vancouver was another great thing that we went on. And we walked in the rain. We walked like 8 miles in the rain in Vancouver. It's hard not to walk in the rain in Vancouver. But it was fantastic. Had a great time. Mm-hmm. So I'm so happy we spent that money and got to do those things.
The trip to Disneyland didn't come out of vacation fund. It came out of LA bucket list. But that's also one that I'm so happy we did.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean Chewie giving you a back massage?
Yeah. Chewbacca. I'm going to put that on screen. Chewbacca joined the massage train because we were like, oh, our backs are walking around all day.
So she was rubbing my shoulders after I'd rubbed her shoulders. And then Chewbacca came up behind her and started rubbing her shoulders while she was rubbing mine. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was great. And Quinn was asleep the entire time. It's so funny. For that moment. She wasn't asleep for the entire experience. She loved it. Okay, so 2% went towards vacations. Treat yourself, 1%, which we didn't even do a treat yourself day.
We didn't. That's okay.
Quinn's college fund, Stash and betterment in Robinhood. And then I put this down here because this is the net. This was money that was left over in our 2023 budget month. From month to month, we would have money left over and we're like, what are we doing with this? Sometimes we would talk about it and I wouldn't set money aside. I was trying to be better about it this year and I think I was than 2022, but still there was money left over in the budget that I completely forgot to move.
Okay.
And so that's...
Well, forgot to move it in the Excel spreadsheet, not from the bank accounts.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a lot of money.
Most of that went to the down payment.
Yes.
I would say 90% of that went to the down payment. Maybe some of it went to vacation fund.
So yeah, that's a big chunk of our take home going towards that goal. So I also wanted to include this chart over here so that we can take a look at how this breaks down from a pie chart perspective so that you can see, oh, okay, yes, they are right. Down payment, rent, and daycare. And then this was the leftover money, but you can count towards down payment and whatnot. So some of these little things though, like, look, it's so small compared to rent and daycare. The big takeaway that I have here is like, how can we reduce the rent and the daycare expenses? The answer is moving to a lower cost of living area, which we're working on. Yeah. It's insane. And so all of the little meticulous detail that I pour into making sure that we're not overspending in things like shopping, restaurants, all that sort of thing is just like, is it making a dent?
But it does add up. Like the accumulation of small things over time adds up. Like if you spent 10 minutes a day, doing something for a year, at the end of the year, it's a lot of minutes. It's a lot of hours that you spent dedicated to that one thing. So it does make a difference at the end of the day for me, in my perspective.
Good.
Because you're doing it, not me. I love you. So one thing that's not on this pie chart that I'm kind of curious about is how much of our income went towards our retirement plans. Because we didn't break that out. How much of our income went towards insurance? Because this is just the stuff that makes our budget, where I have in my pay stub, I have everything taken out automatically. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Mm-hmm. And I'd be curious if we break it down to look at what our insurance costs and retirement are, because I know you have your retirement account too that we don't see broken down on here. I'd be curious what those are.
Yeah.
But I'm going to guess that they're around 15%.
Yeah. And last year you had maxed out your 401k contributions, correct? And the HSA, the health savings account. Yeah. It would be interesting to see how much of our working money, of our pre-tax dollars, went towards our retirement and how much your employer had put in, that sort of thing. So I don't know, maybe that makes for another video.
Whoa.
What is one thing that you're most proud of out of our 2023 budget?
It's an interesting perspective because for me, I'm looking at this and I'm going, what did I enjoy spending money on? And that was our vacations. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing I'm proud of. It's like, hey, it still was very expensive, but I'm so happy we did those things because it's memories that I will keep, longer than I will remember what our rent costs were. In 50 years, someone will be like, what was your rent back in LA? I'll be like, a lot. I don't really remember, but I can tell them, like, I remember taking my 2-year-old to Disneyland and her having a great time meeting Minnie Mouse. Those are the kind of things that I will remember.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I would say like those 3 trips were really, really awesome. And you can tell like travel is still such a thing that we value, even though we're doing less of it. We did less of it last year because we have a kid and because things are so expensive, we really just put our focus on the down payment. And I almost wonder, like, for 2024, if we just, I don't know, we have the down payment. I'm talking about this is the year that we're going to buy something potentially, but I'm also like, what if we just used more money and put more money towards trips and we traveled and we made that happen? Yeah. Quinn's older.
It'd be easier for her to come along now.
Yeah.
She's finally at that age where you can.
Yeah. So that's kind of my takeaway here. But I'm most proud of doing our trips and really funneling a lot of money towards that savings goal. But we still had a lot of fun. We still did a lot of cool things in Los Angeles that a lot of people haven't ever done, won't ever get to do. We've done a lot of things in the city. So yeah, I'm proud of that.
What about you guys? Tell us what you're most proud of financially for 2023. And that can be anything from a vacation like ours to just beating down some of your debt, paying off a student loan. Let us know. I'd be curious to see what everyone is proud of.
Yes. Thank you so much for attending this year-end wrap-up review of our finances. I'm very thankful that we have such an open communication about money that is something that I truly value. And I'm glad that I can come to you and say, like, can we discuss this? Or these are my thoughts. These are like the goals that I have. And you've always been very receptive to that. Even if we've had some tough conversations about some bigger financial goals. So it's always been really helpful.
Yeah. Thanks.
Welcome. And we'll catch you, hopefully, stay tuned for the 2024 series of Beers and Budgeting coming out soon. And follow along with us. I hope it inspires you to take action to achieve financial confidence and crush debt that leads to more fun and fewer payments. And we'll catch you next time.